Church of Gail. September 24th, 2011. My sweet wife. A very strange thing happened to me today. You know how you told me about the unusual phone calls you've been getting? Well, I got a phone call from a woman with a California area code. The girl said her name was Sarah Avery, and she was very fat. Before I could even get a word in to tell her she had the wrong number, she went on to give me a long tangent, explaining how her father molested her. I'm not sure what her motivation was, but my gut intuition told me she was lying for the attention, and that never really happened. She went on to talk about her poor impulse control, how she two-faces everyone in her life, and cheats on her oblivious husband over the internet. I started to feel very strongly uncomfortable by all this, wondering why she was sharing this information with the world, and that was when she changed the subject to how much she loves bacon, and that every night she pounds chocolate cake into her mouth as she cries herself to sleep, and wonders if that's how she stays so unbelievably fat. The only reason her husband Brian Wilson stays with her, even though she is ugly and socially toxic, is because she's willing to wear the pants in the relationship and pay his bills, and he can't get anything better since he doesn't have a spine or a clue. I couldn't take much more of it because it was making me feel very bothered and strange, like I had to take a shower, so I hung up on her. Later in the day, I received a letter from Vladimir Putin, which answered at least some of my questions. I am a little worried about this. Here is the letter. My most sexual lover, Gail. I have waiting so long to reach out contact to you. I had to go silent because we were hunting Jesuit bitches. The Jesuit clone evil Brent Spiner was sneaky bad and make the clothes of the real Brent Spiner YouTube. He also wanted to kill, so he was very ugly bad. We covertly tracked group of Jesuit bitches and Hugh Jackman hide in ice cream to shoot evil Brent clone in head with bullet from very large gun. Hugh Jackman is almost as manly as Vladimir, no? I must tell you that the Jesuits' bitches who were involved in training evil clone are led by a very fat Jesuit woman named Sarah Avery. She is very fat. Now that we have killed this evil clone and exposed the fat Jesuit woman, I can open communicate again. It has been too long without your amazing sexy. I long for more like the aching love that burned deep inside my manhood to place in you. For security, I no longer play your sexy videos in all rooms of the house, but instead keep treasure of your nude in vault. Every night, however, I remove videos and watch my love while release my pent up. I must now go fight the Jesuits' enemy. This is long battle, and fat Jesuit bitch will not expect what will happen. Please keep me in prayer. Your love is make me strong and sexual, Vladimir Putin. I've been reading my Bible over and over again ever since that phone call. Who is this fat Jesuit woman? Vladimir is working on investigating her as we speak. I am worried for you. He says he is tracking her every move, so if she calls you, he will know about it right away, and will know her precise location. I feel a little safer knowing how much control he has over this. He is so manly. I will resume reading my Bible before bed. I can't believe how soothing it is. Of course, nothing compares to the tingle of the caresses I feel as you hold and stroke me to sleep, my love. May I have more tonight, please? Your husband, Brent Spiner. I prayed and asked Jesus what I should do about Sarah Avery. As I read the Bible, the words seemed to jump out at me that she was an evil Jesuit, and Jesus opposed her and would not accept her obesity as an excuse. God saw through her self-righteousness and didn't buy the excuse that obesity somehow made her righteous just by virtue of being fat. A fat sinner was every bit a sinner as a skinny sinner. But Jesus, it is true that fat women are kind of gross to us guys. I could feel Jesus' smile on me as if to say, don't worry. I never intended for any woman to get this fat. I made men visual creatures, and it's not your fault that you are a man and that men like a woman to look good. You don't have to marry a woman just because you feel sorry for her because she's fat. I would never do that to you. Nothing made me happier than the thought of fusing my body with Gail's and loving her. Something new happened to me after I accepted Christ. It seemed a sweet spirit stole over me and infused me from within, so that I never worried about tomorrow. This spirit seemed to check me if I started to fret about anything. Gail's love made me alive. imbued me with courage, and made me aim for the sun. And if I missed the sun, perhaps I'd hit a star. And then I'd feel Jesus smile, and I could envision his face beaming on me as if to say, I'm so glad you are thinking of Gail. I think of her too. But I had forebodings about Sarah Avery. Why was she calling me? My forebodings about Sarah Avery were like a prophecy. So while I, Hugh, Vladimir, and the men celebrated my victory over my clone, Jesuits wasted no time. 2 days after our victory with the Jesuit Brent Spiner clone, Terrance, on September 21st, 2011, saw a car in front of his house in Ontario, Canada. It had stalled on the road. They needed assistance. Terrance, a good Samaritan, offered to help. Jesuits took advantage of Terrance's generosity and leaped a taser net over Terrance, whisking him at the speed of light to Texas, where he landed at a cattle slaughterhouse. Satan was laughing. His servants, the Jesuits, had done brilliantly. They took advantage of the sucker and now had their chance to repay him for his bravery at the Quebec trial. At 1,000 pounds, Sarah Avery came toward him, each of her elephant legs stomping like an earthquake. Terrance had nowhere to run, and his heart palpitated with fear. God, how in the world did a woman get this big? Jesuits had locked him inside the cattle slaughterhouse with no place to escape. He was stuck with the elephant woman, whose eyes peered at him through flabs of fat with a wicked glee. It was like viewing a 1,000-pound marshmallow with stumps for legs and arms, and peepholes for eyes, and dark patches of hair in the pubic area, with an enlarged vagina that had apparently sucked in many men. Yes, Terrance's companion at the cattle slaughterhouse was this Sarah Avery who called me on the phone. The Jesuits made her phone call to me appear to be from California to throw us off. Satan and the Jesuits were having a party. Zack Knight and Satan fist-bumped each other. Yeah, we got him now. Such a brave hero to save Gail by shooting down 1,000,000 of us. Serves the bastard right. With Terrance tied to a post, Sarah flung herself over him, suffocating him. Grabbing a paper plate, she munched on vanilla-flavored cake, and some of the crumbs fell on him. His leg got caught inside the folds of her flesh, possibly inside her large vagina, while she groaned in ecstasy, gobbling down more cake. Terrance felt like an elephant raped him. These Jesuits seem to like elephant rape, I said in my prayers to Jesus. I could sense sadness coming from the Jesus inside me, as if he was nodding his head with disappointment. Jesus never meant for a woman to get this fat, and especially disapproved of a woman using her lack of self-control and gluttony as a weapon against a righteous person. As a physician, I wondered how she managed to stay alive. We discovered that Jesuit physicians used their technology to encourage her sin of gluttony by cleaning out her arteries every day from cholesterol and the harmful effects of her round-the-clock munching on sweet cakes and treats and greasy food. In other words, if she wasn't a Jesuit, her eating habits would have killed her a long time ago. So by using their scientists to overcome her bad habits, the Jesuits encouraged her to gloat in her gluttony. Jesus, a better physician than I, seemed furious at the Jesuits for using this woman like this, and encouraging a self-righteous pride over her sin of gluttony, making sin a virtue. I could feel his disgust over the Jesuits for using obese people in this fashion. Rather than helping them to overcome weaknesses, Jesuits excused weaknesses and gloated in them. To a Jesuit, the only sin was to refuse to join them in their gluttony, rapes, and sex orgies with animals and homosexuals. They accused those superior to them as the weak ones by bullying them and forcing them to submit to the authority of those inferior to them. Oh, yeah, Jesus, kind of like how they forced me to have Laurie McBride as a girlfriend by threatening to kill Gail if I wouldn't submit. The very thought of Laurie put a damper over my heart, like a swarm of locusts blocking the sun. The thought of her satanic eyes, filled with insanity and murder, made my stomach recoil. I almost vomited at the thought of her, but now with Jesus inside of me, I felt strong enough to feel fury at her for her intrusion into my life. Before, so overwhelmed by her power, I could only direct the fury at myself, and often wallowed in depression, feeling myself her slave, licking her footsteps with disgust, feeling like a vile worm, and despising myself for the charade she forced me to play. Our mind reads on Terence captured his thoughts and feelings. On top of Terence, Sarah Avery smelled like rotten fish, fried food, and grease. Terence itched his leg, still reeling from the yeast infection he got from her. She tied him to a post, got on top of him, and smothered him with her massive body so that he couldn't breathe. He became entrapped by the stinky folds of her flesh. Her stomach protruded forward into a huge blob so that her elephant legs seemed as sticks beneath the blob of her belly button, with her tiny head bobbing on top, encased in massive folds of fat. "What's wrong with you?" Her eyes fumed, peeking out between folds of flab on her face. "Why won't you get an erection?" Her lower lip pouted, and she pounced on top of him and smothered him. When she lifted herself, Terence gasped for breath while he wheezed in the smell of her vanilla-flavored cake. The entire time that she forced her flesh upon Terence, she gulped down her vanilla-flavored cake, which she grabbed from a box filled with cake from top to bottom. Her cheeks, stuffed with cake, were puffed out, with bits of cake crumbling to the ground when she opened her mouth to speak. Her flesh against his felt like bees stinging. Her face, encased in folds of fat, pursed to kiss Terence. He lunged back. "What's wrong with you? Not man enough to get it up for me?" She grabbed him and hoisted herself upon him, while he struggled to wrest himself from the pole she tied him to. He ended up with a weapons-grade infection, a vicious fungus that Jesuits could use to spread around and infect others. We finally found him on October 7, 2011. Vladimir Putin rescued Terence in the nick of time. The Jesuits almost put Terence's body in with all the cattle headed for slaughter. Starving and famished for water, Terence was half dead. We never knew it was possible for any woman to get this large. A monster in the shape of a blob, she absorbed everything in her path, her vagina a vacuum cleaner that sucked up men. Oh my God! What would these Jesuits think of next? Oh Jesus, this is monstrous! I often wondered why Jesus allowed the Jesuits to get away with so much. I sensed his sadness over their evil, and that was about all I could get from him when I hammered him in prayer about this. After we almost lost Terence Jenkins, we decided it wasn't safe for us to live on land. We got together with Vladimir's nanotechnology research team and decided to build us a church where we all could live, or at least where we all could meet and make sure all the men were okay. This church would be a spaceship. We'd also create a website where we all could get together and write each other. We needed to stick together because if we got separated, the Jesuits would pick us off in isolation like we almost lost Terence. We were studying the new technology which we confiscated from the Jesuits. There was still much to be learned about their transporter technology.